Hello everybody! Time for part 11 of building the body on the 37 Studebaker. My plan is to finish these headlight buckets in this segment. I'm done putting fiberglass on and now it's just epoxy. I'm getting ready to sand this with 220 and then I'll put another layer of just the resin, and boy, it's smoothing out real nice. I'm also going to smooth out this nose. I've already started the process. I took my file and I'm just filing and it's bringing up some of the high spots which I'm tapping down. I'll do a guide coat at some point, but I'm just getting started. So I've gone over the whole surface one time with the file, and man, that really brought out how rough it is. But this is 60 thousandths material, so I have some room to knock down the high spots. Then I'll do some hammer and dolly work, and then a little Bondo. Well, I've spent some time filing on this, and I'm getting to know the surface and developing a plan of attack. I did a little bit of hammer and dolly work down here, and that's much better. But the real problem is right here, this piece, and the same thing over here, right in here. I think what I want to do is I'm going to cut it away. I'll come across here and down, and then I'll just make a patch panel that will attach. And if I do that, there'll be far less ripples. I can deal with most of this up here, but this is a real problem area, so I think that's the direction I'm going to move. Here you can see how this patch will work. It'll apply externally with screws or rivets, probably rivets. It'll just plant right on, cover up everything. I may even have it capture this area back here, and there will also be one where the radius rod comes out. But this will help me a lot in finishing this nose piece. Since the nose is held on with sheet metal screws, it won't be too hard for me to remove it and get it up on the bench, and then I can cut away the problem areas. So that's my plan. Let's pull this thing off of there. I have the nose removed, and using the pattern I made a mark where I'm planning on cutting it. You can see it's rough right in here, and that's due to these welds here where I filled in. So my cut line will be beyond the welds out here where it's much smoother. I'm going to do that on both sides. I cut away the rough metal on both sides, and I'm glad that I did, because the rest of the structure is more or less of the same finish, so I think I can work it. This will be the cover piece that will surround the spring and the axle. I had a piece of particle board laying around, so I made up this holding jig. Now this thing is firm, and I can work it from whatever angle is optimum. It also allows me to get up underneath it with the dolly. I can get under here. So I'm going to do some more filing and some hammer and dolly work, and see if I can get it a little bit smoother before I Bondo it. I have a little belt sander over there that I put a 36 grit belt on, and then I went over it with a 50 grit belt, and that's what you see on this side, and it's knocked down quite a bit of the high spots, but you can certainly see the low spots. Then on this side I've been using the palm sander with 80 grit, working that down, and it's starting to shape up pretty good. It'll still need Bondo, but that's alright. So this is just another coat of epoxy resin. That resin sure lays down nice. I'm real happy with the way these are turning out. So tomorrow night should be the final sanding before primer, if all goes well. Continuing on with the headlight buckets, you can see that I've sanded them and applied some primer. And I'm developing the concept of how I want to finish these. This is going to be a piece of aluminum that I polish, so it'll have a chrome look. It'll probably end up a little narrower than this. I have this white gloss laminate that I think I'll use here. And then I'll put a bulb in it. And then, of course, the exterior will get painted at some point. Then I'm going to create the headlight lens. I'm going to vacuum form that out of clear or tinted plastic. So I'll tell you about that in a minute. You know, I could buy some headlights and install them, but I like to make things and develop ideas, and these are within the scope of the things I know how to do. But I do purchase things, like for instance, I was over at Harbor Freight, and these are trailer tail lights. I think I'm going to put those on the Studebaker. So, you know, it's a balance. You buy some things, you make others. But when I'm done with these headlight buckets, they'll be unique. So let's keep plugging away on these, see what I can come up with. I mentioned that I'm going to do the headlight lenses. I'm going to vacuum form them. Well, I've been building radio control models. This is a scratch-built electric that I built a couple years ago. I've been building models since the late 80s, and these parts I made molds for and vacuum formed them, the wing tips also. So I know how to do it. I have a vacuum form machine, but I have to make the molds. So that's what I'm working on now. Here I have temporarily glued on a balsa block. That will be the mold to make the headlight lens. Here you can see I've been shaping this one. When I have it exactly the shape, the height, the depth, the curve that I want, then I can remove it from this bucket and put it in the machine to make a part. Now there's quite a bit to making a part, more than just sanding up a piece of balsa, but I'll show you as I go how this will work. I'm happy with the shape that's coming along nicely here. I'm going to go with that. I have to sand the other one. Get that done, and then I'll show you the next step. Here I've finished sanding both of them. They turned out real good. So next I'm going to pop these off and work on getting them ready for the molding process. This is a piece of ABS plastic that is going to be used to make the first part. This won't actually be the clear lens. This will be a part used to make the plug to make the clear lens, and I'll explain that more as we go on. This plastic is about 3/32 thick, I'd say. Here I've removed the molds, and I'm applying some lacquer sealer. I'll probably put on, I don't know, quite a few coats, because I'm trying to harden up the surface so it can accept some paste wax. That in essence would be the mold release, is the wax. So this is the first coat. So I finished applying the sanding sealer, and I sanded it down in between coats. This has been sanded to 400. And then I added some additional balsa on the bottom of the molds, about 3/8 of an inch. That'll allow me to trim the part later. And now I'm applying paste wax, and I'm going to put on 4 coats. I apply it, let it dry a little, buff it, put on some more. I'll do that several times. And then prior to doing the vacuum forming, I'll use some mold release. Because one of the biggest problems making a part, vacuum forming, is getting the mold out of the part. So there's quite a bit of preparation that goes into it. So I'm almost ready to make a part. Let me show you the vacuum form machine. Many years ago, when I was heavily into radio control airplanes, I wanted to make some vacuum form parts, so I was able to make this machine. I probably made it 15 years ago. I bought the plans online and bought all the parts and made it, and it does a nice job of making small vacuum form parts. It's a simple operation. It's got a little vacuum pump. This switch turns on the oven, which is right under here, and that heats the plastic, and once it droops, the part will be over here on the platen, and this will flip over and get vacuumed down over the part. So it'll be on oven, and then the center pole is off, and then I'll kick it over to the vacuum and suck the part down. So let's make the first part, see what happens. Alright, I have the plastic in the frame, and I'm getting ready to energize the oven, and that will make the plastic soften and sag, and at the appropriate time I'll flip it over onto the part. So let me get this thing fired up here, see how it works. So the red light means the oven is on. Yep, and it's heating up. So I'll keep an eye on the plastic as it starts to droop. And then I'll turn the oven off, turn the vacuum on, and see if we get a part here. It'll take a minute for the plastic to soften. That plastic's about 3/32 thick. You can see the oven glowing under there, the coils. I don't know if you can see it, but the plastic is starting to soften and droop. Okay, I better pay attention now. I think the plastic is ready, so let's give it a shot. Hey, look at that. That came down pretty good. I think it's time to mold the second part. So let's see how that goes. Only takes a few seconds for the plastic to stiffen up, so just use a little compressed air and it comes out. I'd say that was successful. Now that I've made this part out of the white ABS plastic, I need to create a better mold, a much smoother and harder mold if I'm going to make a part from clear plexiglass or plastic. If this was, let's say, a cowl for a radial engine on a radio control airplane, I could use the part as it is. But I want it to be clear. And when I was molding canopies, I learned that you needed a mold that was perfectly smooth. Otherwise, any imperfection will show up in the clear plastic. So I learned to use this Durham's water putty. It's water soluble. You mix it up and you pour it in the mold, and then it hardens up like a rock. And you can sand it to like 1,000 grit and polish it, and you'll be more successful getting a nice clear part. In this case, I want a clear headlight lens, so that's the reason for making the white part. So I'm gonna mix up the mold material now. So I mixed up the water putty, poured it in, and now I'm getting the bubbles out of it. And then I'll let it set for 24 hours. Things are coming along nicely on the headlight here. You know, I started with the balsa, waxed it, made a part out of some white ABS, and now I have the little, they're like a prehistoric dinosaur egg, you know, they're just hard as a rock. So while I was waiting for this to dry, I just took the balsa plug and I made a test piece. Now you can't see it on the camera, but if you hold this up into the light, you can see the layers of the balsa and the grain in the clear lens. Most would think this is okay, but I know I could do a little better job. So when I use this one, this will be smooth and won't have any surface defects. Also, I'll show you the direction I'm heading here. You can see how this will be the lens. This still needs a trimming, and this is a sample piece. This is a piece of aluminum that I've been experimenting with on the shrinker, so that'll create a band around. But you know, got a little light bulb. Think I'll do gloss white or maybe some aluminum foil or something in there reflective. So it's coming along. I've been sanding on these, and they're not quite dry yet. I gotta wait another 24 hours, I think. But I did a little sanding with 400, and they're smoothing up real nice. I'm working on the buckets. This is poster board, and I carved out the foam to create a little contour. And then I can fold this together. I got a piece of tape here. And that creates the cone. And then I used, I have some of this tacky glue that I used to glue these down. I'm going to spray paint the whole thing white. I hope to, this will be a gloss white. I'm going to do some kind of decorative element there along with the bulb. So anyway, things are coming along here. Before I can do the final painting on these, I need to make sure that they will install on the car properly, basically mock it up. And that's what this little holding jig is. It's a little mock-up, because these will be the mounting brackets. So I got to cut the slot in the fiberglass, and then I can slip it over these brackets. Make sure it looks right, get it all sanded up real nice, so I won't run into any issues when I do the final installation. So I have the molds all polished and ready to go. They have the mold release sprayed on. The plastic is ready to form the part. Okay. I think that'll be all right. I have been making good progress on the headlight buckets. I finished painting them. They're gloss white now. And I glued in the bulbs. And now I'm decorating them a little bit. These are the test pieces. I use these to figure out how to trim it and to shape it. These will be the ones I'll actually install. I'm going to use this tacky glue. Works pretty good. It dries pretty much clear. As a test, I glued this onto this melamine here, and it's on there pretty good. I used the same glue to hold these. These are little pieces of aluminum. I thought I would mock up the nose and the headlight buckets here. I'm getting close to having both of them finished. On the nose, I sanded it to 80 grit and 120 grit. That's after I filed it. And it's smoothed out quite a bit, but I'm still going to have to use some Bondo. And then the headlight buckets, I glued on the lenses, and I have to make the little bezel, little ring. That's next. And won't be long before I have this nose section finished and I can move on to something else. I've been working on these headlight bezels, experimenting with different widths and thicknesses, and I've been using the shrinker to develop my technique. And I'm using 40 thousandths aluminum. You can see the shrink marks. And I'm sanding through them so that I can have a light polish on these, or maybe just a bare aluminum brushed look. I'll sand these to probably 220, and then I'll bend them around and try to get them to fit. I'm preparing these strips for a quick polish. And I'm wet sanding them to 600, then 800, and I think I have some 1000 or 1200 in there. Get them nice and smooth, and then they'll shine up pretty quick once you put them to the buffing wheel. Well, I can finally say that I'm done with the headlight buckets. I'll have to install them properly on the nose when that's finished, but these were a bit of a challenge, I'll have to admit. But I painted them white so that they'll go with any color scheme at this point. I could always paint them later. Alright, glad this one is done. I'm back to working on the nose piece again. Here's all the sandpaper grits I'm planning to use on this nose piece out here. It's a nice warm Saturday, so I'm back on it, sanding the Bondo. I put a skim coat over the whole thing. I've already sanded it with 80 grit, and now I'm at the 120 phase. Let's see, I think I'll do 180, 220, maybe up to 280, and then I'll put on the primer and see how it looks. So far it feels pretty good, so I think I'll have success here, and I'll have it back on the car before long. Okay, I just dusted on the first coat of primer. I'm using this Rust-Oleum automotive primer. It's dark gray primer. Later, when I paint the whole car, this all gets sanded off, but this will do for now. And I want a dark surface to lay out the grill bars, which is coming next. Okay, a couple more coats and I can install it on the car. I went with the dark gray primer on the nose so I could see layout lines for the grill bars, and I'm also putting primer, a 4-inch band on either side of the body here, because the grill bars will lay in there also, and I'll be able to see those lines. I'm getting close to having this nose finished to the point where I can install it with the rivets. The primer is still curing, and I'll probably sand it a little bit, but you can see where I'm going to put the grill bars here. And I mocked it up for the sake of seeing what it might look like. I have the material that I'm going to use. Let's see, I think it's right over here in the corner. See, this is the half round material. I'll show you that later. Okay, I think I'm going to call this the end of this video, and in the next one we'll install the nose and I'll lay out these grill bars and hopefully get them made and installed. I've been wanting to do that for quite some time, so I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so as always, I appreciate that you watch. Thanks everybody. See you next time.